Hey, hey, good to see you.
Oh, hey, Colin. I love the redecoration of
We're
our
iterative
office
improvement.
hours space.
It, iterative improvement. It's our virtual, sitting on the couch talking. It's kind of what I thought. We're
Nice, nice.
we're
Nice.
like physically. I like that we're like sitting on the couch. So
Yeah, exactly.
facing each other, just in our digital restream room.
hmm And physically, I will be in Atlanta. I'm
Right.
declaring it. All right. My sister's there, my brother's there, my mom's like in Stone Mountain. I'm like, hey, it just makes sense.
I would love to house you in Atlanta. I believe that that will be in your future. I would love to. I'll share my put it out in the universe. My Atlanta's landlocked, so I grew up obviously in Atlanta. Like it doesn't have like an ocean or a beach or anything, but the way that I grew up around water was like they have lake houses. So they have lakes. A lot of them are man-made lakes, but a lot of different lakes in Georgia. So my dream has always been to get to a place where I could afford to have a lake house and then entertain people. Obviously, that's really expensive, but I feel like it's possible, let's just say, because I used to grow up with friends or family friends that had those types of experiences. My family didn't have one, but like we knew people who had one. So that was always my desire in coming back to Atlanta was to get there. So then I can invite yourself, your family, other people to have because I always thought that those were the best. That's what made to me the best Atlanta experiences because it has like an urban environment. So and then like you could drive 30, 40 minutes. So it's like under an hour, like not like an annoying drive, and then have like a totally different experience of like a more like country esque environment of like nature. And the blend of
hmm
the two is what I always loved about Atlanta. Like, because if you go to like New York or other, LA, it's harder to have both of those in like one day. Like, you have like a real urban morning and then like a real nature, like lake experience afternoon and evening, and then go back to your urban place because it's only like 40-minute drive. That's what I aspire to get to a place where I could house you in that lake house.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Lord bless him, Lord. Bless him. Plenty times over.
One day.
That sounds good, man. That
One
sounds
day.
how was your weekend?
My weekend was good. It was my niece's 2-year-old birthday party. It was her birthday. So yeah, it's just really fun to watch her slowly come into her own, like understand that it's her birthday, not necessarily understand probably what a birthday is, but get that it's something. And she could kind of like tell people it's my birthday, it's my birthday. So just yeah, that was a fun. It was fun to have that passively be part of my life because
That's awesome.
yeah, it's like it's always nice to kind of be uncle because you get like a nice few hours and then you kind of go back to your life. So I like
Yeah, no diapers included.
yeah. I'm a big I'm a big fan of being an uncle. Let's just say
Yeah,
that. How about you?
nice.
What
I'm
did you
gonna
do?
I'm gonna be an uncle again next month.
Oh,
My wife's
congratulations!
sister is having a baby boy next month, and so we actually had a baby shower for her last like Saturday, and it was fun. Blue and white, tons of friends, family. They brought gifts, tons of gifts. Man, like she's stocked up. So that was fun. But I've always been maybe when I'm a father, I'll think differently. But I've had this idea that kids don't really care or know they don't understand the value of a birthday until they're a certain age, right?
Yeah,
Because I mean, my sister's baby isn't even born. All
yeah,
right, I'm sure he's jumping around in the tummy, but he doesn't know what's going on, right? And I'm 1 year old. I see people having birthday parties for 1 year olds. I mean, okay, all right. I think it's more for the mom and the
yeah,
dad. I don't
yeah,
think it's really for the kid. Like they
yeah,
just want ice cream and cake and like they're good.
yeah, yeah. I as going through both of those first and second, I agree with you that the first birthday was very much more for the parents and like grandparents and then their wider friends. But I felt like what I witnessed was the second birthday was kind of the birthday that she kind of became aware that it was special. So I could see she had a good day. So I could see she doesn't probably understand why, but like, everyone was very attentive to her, let her have things that she might not have normally had like morning with grandma. Like there was a lot of specialness to the day that I could see her walking around being like, you know what, I like my birthday. I'm excited to have that day again. So it's like I kind of saw it, where it's like whatever she kind of wanted, she kind of got it. So it became like a special day. So I feel like you have to almost like go through the 2, 3, 4 to like see it's recurring to then kind of get to a place where you're excited about it.
Yeah. But Colin, between you and me, when we have kids, they won't even know. I don't know they're a birthday, what it is, but like parties and toys and all that kind of like they won't know until they're at an age where they can appreciate it. All right. When I was your age, I had 2 jobs, right? And you're like, oh, where are my toys?
What? You're already turning into an old man. In my day, I had 2 jobs. I had to walk in the snow. I mean, that's you're too young to have that type of attitude already.
Better work. Work for toys. But yeah, so nice. Glad you had a great weekend.
Same to you.
So I see. What's the topic for today?
Yeah. So I'm excited to kind of dive in. So last week we went over how to source leads on LinkedIn. So I thought that was really important to go through targeting and prospecting. But let's assume that now we've gone through and we understand how to source leads. What's the next step of the process? So today we're going to go over the messaging funnel. Nice. And the idea is what we want to bring to the people an understanding of how do you connect and how do you open conversations on the platform? Because this is where I feel like whenever I train people, this is where people, this is the thing that they get wrong the most. And I know that we've talked about this offline. And I know that this was something that came a little bit more natural to you because I feel like for certain people who are more sales oriented, they like people. This is, a little bit more,
natural.
It comes natural, right? Because you're about building relationships. But for people that might not be as natural. And also the fact that then it becomes like a technical without like you being face to face. I feel like it's really important to go through how do you connect with people on LinkedIn and open up conversations effectively. So yeah, that's what we want to go over today.
All right.
Any thoughts before we dive in?
Yeah, that's 100% important. It's the how you start things off. They say first impression lasts. That's mostly true, but it's important. How you start things typically tends to dictate how it the journey of it and even the end and the result of all that. So the art of starting the conversation, and transitioning into the messaging funnel. I'm excited to see what your main points are, and I want to know if I've been doing it. I want to see what your points are so I can tell if I've been doing this right the whole time.
I have a feeling that a lot of this is going to come natural to you, but I've really kind of broken it down into a science. So I feel like let's dive in. So I want to start with it's important to kind of realize why most people fail at networking and how to fix it. So I kind of want to anchor this in understanding what people are doing and kind of understanding the tactics that actually work. Okay. So what I want to start with is most people don't have a messaging problem. They have a framing problem. And the framing that they bring to the conversation kills their conversations before the conversation even begins. So what I mean by that is oftentimes when I talk to people, they always assume that there's a magic template that if I just knew what sequence of words to put in order, then I would be so much richer. I would be so good at sales. I just need to know the secret sequence of words. And as someone that has done this for a long time and it's kind of came a little bit natural to, I want to start from the premise of making sure people understand that there's no secret formula when it comes to doing sales and opening up conversations. It's not a messaging problem. It's how you're framing yourself and your offer. and how you're the framing. It's exactly what you just said without even necessarily knowing it. It's about first impressions, right? Because when you go up to somebody in an in-person, networking event, how you're presenting yourself, the confidence, what you look like, how what's your opener, those things are all framing. It doesn't matter if you said this before that or put this before that. That's what I actually think people are kind of getting this little too in the weeds and not really thinking about the massive framing aspect of it. So
Okay.
what I want to do is I want to anchor in on this screenshot because I think that this is a great example of someone skipping part of the networking process. So what I want to do is, imagine that somebody connects with you on LinkedIn. You get a connection request.
Yeah.
And let's say you're looking at that person and as like a natural frame of conversation, because I get this all the time, people reach out to me and then sometimes, depending, maybe they didn't say anything, maybe they said something. Obviously when you're on LinkedIn, you're tapped based off the character count. So it's typically not like this long-winded explanation. So what I typically like to do is to ask them, what led you to reach out to me, right? You can frame it in different words because again, it's not the messaging of it, it's the framing, right? So you could message it differently, but the framing is trying to open up a conversation. I'm trying to open up a conversation because people asked me that they wanted to connect. So it's natural for me to say, well, like,
why do you want to connect?
What do you want in so many ways? What led you to reach out to me? And so this is a typical response that I get often. And I think anybody that networks a lot with LinkedIn would understand what I mean. They say, thank you for connecting with me. Let's connect and learn from one another. I'd appreciate if we can connect for 15 minutes so I can learn from your experience, share mine, and get to know each other better. Are you available this week or next? Would really appreciate an opportunity to connect. So let me pause. What do you think about this?
All right, let's see. All right.
Let me ask you, would you take a meeting based off this message?
Would I take a meeting? All right, let's see.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for the invite to connect. What led you to reach out to me? All right. Hi, thank you for connecting. Let's connect and learn from another. Okay. I'd appreciate if we can connect for 15 minutes so I can learn from your experience, share mine, get to know each other better. Are you available this week or next? Would really appreciate the opportunity to connect. Well, they're not getting A plus for English. It almost feels like someone from another language. Like English isn't their main language, and they're leaning heavily on keywords like connect and connect and connect. They said it like 3 times in the same message, and then they reiterated it asking for available times. But I don't know. I don't know why I'd like to connect. I'd probably have to lean on what their profile says about them, like what they do, and decide if that's of interest to me. But just off this message alone, I'm like, what are you hitting on me? Like, what do you mean? What do you mean you want to get to know me better? Like, I don't know you. It's kind of weird.
So I think it's fair to say that the first impression that you have in reading this message is not good. You're saying that you would maybe give them a shot by going to their profile, and depending on when it hits you and how much time you have in that moment, it sounds like there's a high probability that you would just ignore it.
Probably wouldn't ignore, but I'd politely decline. Politely.
Okay. So I agree. And so why would you ignore it? You said obviously the grammar and stuff, but I'm trying to focus a little bit more on the framing of it. Just to kind of get to the point, building a relationship is about getting acquainted, like off of LinkedIn, or like, it's about getting to know somebody. So the fact that they're jumping to the conversion is skipping some of the process, in my opinion, right? Because they've connected with me. And then when I'm asking a natural conversation starter of like, what it is why do you want to reach out to me? Their answer is giving their conversion. So they skipped the report. And the framing of it is very conversion minded, transactional, that it rubs me the wrong way because I'm guessing based off of this, they're just using automation. You know how I feel about automation. I wouldn't send this to somebody because I don't actually believe that they've read my profile. And I don't really believe that they want to connect with me. I believe that they're fishing for somebody to respond in some positive frame that then they will maybe, if it's convenient for them, look at my profile and go from there, which is, another way of saying that they're kind of using automation and not really, and just thinking through, again, not the framing, but more of the messaging. It's like, well, if I have good targeting, I have a good message, then send it out to as many people as possible and we'll see what happens. I like to say this is the equivalent of walking up to someone at a party or a networking event and asking them for a job before shaking their hand. So they haven't even shaked my hand yet. They haven't even opened the conversation. There's so many different ways that you could go about doing it. But again, the framing of it is what turns me off because it's not conversational. That's the way I feel about it.
Stick up in, Colin. Stick up in. The messaging is off for sure. It probably wouldn't be automation because you responded. So normally in automations, when the lead responds, the automation stops. And then I think this is like a copy and pasted response that didn't think too much about what you asked. You were asking something specific, but they were pretty general, right? So if somebody asks you a specific question, then you kind of want to respond in a specific way. Even if there are some generalities to your response, you kind of want to answer the question. And they didn't really answer the question in a specific way. I don't think it's automation, but I think it's copy and paste canned message from somebody who isn't really a master of the English language.
So, fair, but what I was saying is that the connection request, I think, came from automation. Because
very likely.
I don't think that they sought me out wanting to connect with me. I think I hit certain demographic.
Target criteria.
I'm in a bunch of leads that they're just blasting out and then
founders in the US.
Yeah, exactly. And then so basically just kind of reverse engineering, they're probably automating some, getting a connection. I responded and then they're templatizing the response. It's pretty that's their frame. That's their like framing of this, right? So we can reverse engineer their frame and their frame doesn't come across strong to somebody like me who kind of, gets it, what they're doing, and doesn't really respect it. So I am going to probably ignore it. And you're even able to reverse engineer the frame. So remember, you mentioned some of the messaging of it, but I'm really honing in on they have bad framing. They didn't present themselves in a way that makes me want to connect with them. It's the equivalent of somebody coming up to me and just asking me for something right away, interrupting my conversation with somebody else and asking me something. Maybe they are a good fit. Maybe they would help me, but you can't do that in a social situation and think that you're going to get the conversion that way. That's the framing problem. So what most people send, now talking a little bit about messaging, is they say something like, can we connect for 15 minutes? And to be fair, I've done this a lot too. This used to work a lot better on LinkedIn because before everybody came on LinkedIn and the pandemic and everybody connecting and, understanding Zoom and things like that, there was a period where like that was a fine ask. But now jumping to connecting before we actually connect is actually, I would say, not the way that you want to frame building rapport and having a networking dialogue. So the answer to how you do that is there's lots of different ways to do this, but lead with value, right? And lead with, specificity, like you said, or personalization in many different ways. Remember, framing, not messaging. I enjoyed your post on this, right? If they looked at my post, if I said, what led you to reach out to me? Hey, I saw that you posted this. It came across my profile. I was curious how you thought more about this problem, right? That demonstrated that they looked at my profile. That, if they gave me that, it would be hard for me at that point not to accept their connection request, because now all of a sudden their framing is like, well, maybe they do want to connect with me. I I mean, well, I'm willing to at least take another step. But
Yeah, and they're worth connecting with as well because a response like this communicates thought, intentionality, intelligence. It's not canned or templatized. So I
exactly.
think it might be worth it because I'm like, hey, if I jump in a conversation, what else could that brilliant brain come up with that that could be
Yeah.
of value to me?
And now it demonstrates to me that they've at least, I feel confident that they at least know who I am. Whereas before, I'm not so confident. If you just want to connect without demonstrating that you read my profile and understand about my business, what's in it for me? But if you demonstrated that you understand, you scanned something, you looked at it, it makes it a lot different for me as the receiver to then give you the benefit of the doubt to at least connect and follow up with, something positive. Thanks, look at your profile a little bit more. Again, it's all about framing, not messaging. The messaging is not really the issue. It's the framing of how they're, converting with me. So this is, when I was doing this, I still do this. This is kind of the way that I think about it, right? So now, how do you frame? I think about everything like a networking funnel, and I think that this is a really important concept for people to really grasp when they're networking on LinkedIn. But this applies to general marketing. So, right over here on the right hand side, this is like a general marketing funnel, right? Most people kind of understand this, where you have awareness at the top, then you have consideration, then you have conversion. So the idea of marketing is you need to make people aware of you. This could be personal branding. This could be direct mail. This could be going to a networking event. You have to show up and let people know that you exist. And then you have to take that funnel and combine it into getting people to consider and understand what it is that you do. So, show up, build rapport, and then ask for the conversion. And the problem in what we just showed is that people are skipping the consideration. They're connected with me, right? They got my attention, but then they immediately went for the conversion without really caring about my consideration, right? How's the framing of how they're coming across to get me into a position where I would even consider, opening the dialogue with them? If you skip a step, it's going to rub people the wrong way. So on the left-hand side, it's like, how do you apply that to LinkedIn? So this is the networking funnel that I like to think about. First, you have LinkedIn campaign. You want to find people, right? You want to source prospects off of LinkedIn. You want to find good people. You go to an in-person networking event. You meet good people. It doesn't have to be on LinkedIn. You have to identify who you are trying to network with. That might be by an inbound request. That might be, seeing a post about something that catches your eye and you realize that, hey, that person would be a good person to network with. I would like to meet that person. Once you've identified them, I classify them as a LinkedIn campaign because at that point, they're just a prospect. They're not like, they're in awareness stage. The next part of the process is a talking replied status. That means that they like something, commented, replied. There's some type of engagement, right? It's not serious, but it's not LinkedIn campaign. You've already identified them, and now you have brought awareness to the fact that you exist, right? So if you like something, you could, and they, let's say you comment on somebody's post, and then they comment back. I would say that's a talking replied. It means that they know who you are, especially if you saw that they viewed your profile. At that point, it's not like you're a stranger. You have broken into the awareness part of the funnel. And then you could classify that, it's a little bit subjective, but you want to be in a stage of having awareness. And then the goal is to drive that awareness into the consideration stage, which is more like a serious conversation, which means that you've gone deeper at that point. You've exchanged DMs, asked them questions about their business. You've kind of gathered some diagnostics around whether or not that you are a good fit for each other in whatever conversion you're trying to do. Are they a good fit for you to have a networking call with? Are you a good fit for them?
Referral partners, maybe.
To do whatever you want, even if it's just to follow your company page or, follow them. Like you want to exchange some type of discourse with somebody because you never really know until you've at least found somebody, opened some dialogue, and then, diagnose them through DMs. That leads to what I call most of the time for this networking funnel, the conversion, which is you want to get on a networking call with somebody. You do want to get to that 15-minute call like that person asked me, but you can't skip the process. You can't go strictly to the discovery call scheduling stage, which is what I did, without talking, replied, and serious conversation. If you do that, you're not framing things the right way. And then the last stage is, a completed call. So, we could talk in a future session about how do you manage the call. What happens when you transition someone off of LinkedIn into a Zoom call? How do you present yourself? What are the things that you think about during that stage? But at least for purposes of this conversation, it's about LinkedIn campaign, talking replies, serious conversation, and discovery call scheduling. Flowing through those 4 stages, like somewhat seamlessly, where your goal is not to close them, it's to climb. It's to climb to the next stage. And if you approach it that way, then you're going to come across a lot with a better frame, let's just say, than the people who did what most people are doing, which is just immediately ask for calls.
Yeah. Okay.
So what does that kind of lead us to? I would say it's the power of micro conversion. So this is, to me, the big insight that I think that helps unlock for a lot of people. How do you gamify this a little bit? Especially when how I feel about automation. I'm not a big fan of automation, but that doesn't mean that you can't automate your own behavior. So automation with outreach systems, not really that good, because it leads to conversations like we saw, which they're clearly using automation. It's not thoughtful. But if you want to do this a little bit more at scale, you want to automate your own behavior. So what does that look like? Well, it's understanding what the micro conversions are for each stage of the funnel. So how do you prospect, right? What the micro conversion is, what we went over last week, was knowing the mechanics of how to use LinkedIn to source good prospects. That might also be just going to networking events and gathering connections there, like meeting people. That the conversion for a LinkedIn campaign is, the micro conversion is, can you connect with them and get an acceptance? That's pretty much it. Connection request to a combo opener. Or if you like a post, could you like some stuff and get a comment and a reply to a comment, right? How do you create a little bit of sales touch points to be able to, just climb the ladder to then maybe open up a DM to exchange ideas. And then after exchanging of ideas, you can get a discovery call. And that's how you build trust. And so, like, the reason I feel like this is really powerful is because once you understand what the micro conversions are that make sense to you, you can identify a certain situation for what it is, right? If they're a LinkedIn campaign, you need to get them to a talking reply. If you've already gotten them to a talking reply, you need to get it serious. You need to exchange ideas. And then if you exchange enough ideas, it actually becomes a lot easier to then ask for
the conversion.
Yeah, ask for the conversion in a very natural way. So that's how you build trust with strangers online. And so what's the benefit of this? Well, keeps you from chasing. That's, I think, the most important thing, because what we saw in the beginning with that person is they're chasing calls. I often find that, like, with service providers, maybe like yourself a little bit too, you're trying to chase the conversion. But when you chase the conversion, it gets away from you. So what you want to do is to be able to develop the skill set around being able to network proficiently, so it lets the right people rise to the top naturally. Because if you have a good profile and you do good targeting and you're thoughtful in the way that you're framing, it reduces a lot of pressure from yourself and the prospect to, have a meaningful conversation that would hopefully, dive to serious. It gives you real-time data on who's worth progressing, because if, you'll see at that point, you'll get responses where some people will be very chatty. Some people will give you one-word answers. Some people will ask you questions back. Some people will not. And so that real-time data will help you understand, well, who, even though they're an A or B on paper, now who is an A and B based off of timing. because the reality of any market is only 3% of buyers are usually a buyer in that immediate time.
Oh, 3%.
Yeah, that's like
Wow.
yeah, 90. Well, because most people, you have a big pie of 100% of the TAM, the total addressable market, but
Uh-huh.
not everybody within that area is usually in the need for a product or service at that moment in time for a variety of reasons. So what you're usually doing is searching for the 3% that are in the market for fixing certain problems. So
Yeah.
to do that, you got to get real time data. You got to like have conversations with people and see, how urgent a certain problem is. Oftentimes, I found that the easiest way to do that is try to get people on networking calls, just so you could, understand more about their context in the moment. And you could do that. You don't need to have like these hour-long calls. Just it's a lot easier than trying to consistently do all this information in the DMs at all times with different people versus just being able to, hear from people what their story is, where they're at. But I think the most important thing about doing this is it helps you develop a networking skill set, because the framing aspect of what we're talking about applies in person, it applies online, it applies in most relationships that you have. It's about like, how do you show up to listen, active listening a little bit more, and then helping you understand how do you progress people at the right time. Because that's the other thing. It's like it's a timing thing. Most people get the timing wrong. It's not about always what to say. It's about maybe what not to say at particular times that kind of annoy people. And I think that's what most people get wrong. So what I like to say, it's okay for someone to stay in talking replied or serious conversation for a while. You don't need to ask for the conversion right away, because you're creating sales touch points. You're building relationships with people.
Mm-hmm.
And if people don't respond to you, this is the other thing, especially on LinkedIn, if people don't respond to you, they just assume the worst. They assume, they're ghosted, they're bothering them. But if you take this framework where you're trying to build rapport and relationships, the stopping of a conversation means pretty much nothing, because you could always reopen it based off of another value-driven prompt. Hey, I saw this article. I wanted to re-engage. I thought that you might find it useful. How are things progressing? Right? You're just opening the conversation a little bit more
with value.
Interesting
stuff. Okay.
Yeah. So what are your takeaways from this for the people?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's that middle stage of so there's you said awareness, then there's consideration, then conversion. A consideration has been like crossed out, does not exist for like most people on LinkedIn. Like awareness, then conversion. Let's meet. There's that middle stage that I think is so important. Like more people need to know this. Like I think people don't like the feeling of rejection. So in a sense, I think they're trying to skip over the serious conversation because they think that maybe the person won't agree with their ideas, won't necessarily be interested in their service, and they're so one track, fixed on what their conversion is, that they don't see any other way of collaborating with this person. So they take it as a no. They interpret it as a no instead of interpreting it as, how else could we collaborate that is also of value to you, right? How else can I keep networking with you, have serious conversations until there is an opportunity for a conversion, right? But I've had trouble with, I think maybe a lot of people in lead generation and outreach might have this problem with actually tracking these serious conversations. Because if you're really going at it, you can lose track very easily as to who you're having conversations with and who's at what stage, etc. So I'm very excited, just plugging Pursuit Networking as a breakthrough tool that helps us to track those serious conversations. And I hope we can look at that in the coming weeks.
Yeah. I first of all, you're spot on that when I started doing this for myself and clients, and I started kind of putting the pieces together, two things happened. One, I started realizing that this became a data management problem, because keeping track of people, like you said, is the hard part. And then I realized that automation is making automation of outreach is actually shooting myself in the foot because I'm creating more data management problems and lowering my conversion rates. Because think about it, you're reaching out to more people without so much thought on the prospecting is so wide that the conversion percents are so low because of that it's like it became so hard to drive serious conversations. I'm not saying that, because what I always found, and I don't know, maybe you can even attest to this because I haven't done that in literally years. I could always get people from LinkedIn campaign to Talking Replied in an automated fashion, but getting them to a serious conversation, to a call, into like a sales process, right? Because the way I think about this is a networking funnel, not a sales funnel. That's really important. I don't even think about this as sales until I get them on a call, because then I'm diagnosing is like, well, do I think that I could help them, or do they want to be helped? Because some people like will take your call just to, they like networking, right? So again, they're not the 3% in need of certain offers. So I found that I was actually wasting time networking with people who just wanted to network, that didn't really lead to anything. So I'm doing massive outreach, automating Talking Replied, getting them serious, but the prospects that kind of ended up here weren't super qualified, essentially.
Yeah.
Is kind of became the problem. So it was like I'm overloaded by data because I'm like using Sales Navigator in like a massive outreach way, and also like using lists, and all the people that are coming into here aren't going anywhere. So the answer was, well, how do I get better at prospecting, and how do I get better at data management so I could stay on top of the opportunities and nurturing of people who I think are good, even if they might not be right for the moment, but over a period of time, I can nurture. And also, I really just get better at understanding who is good and why, and like really honing in on everything we talked about last week. Like, that became the most important thing, which, leads me to kind of the end here. And then I will show you some of the software that we've developed, because this has been an ongoing thing, to keep track of it. But the real skill I really, led me to is prospecting. It's like everything we went over last week. I know people hate doing that, right? And you want to have this like silver bullet of like, I just want the AI to figure out who I need to network with. It's like, I get it. I want that too. And maybe Pursue Networking can build that in time in the right way. But at the end of the day, if you take yourself out of that and just give it up to the machine, then you don't really wind up learning about, well, who are the right people that increase your conversions? Like, is it everybody? Is it founders? Like you said, is it founders in America that are like in technology? Is it, or is it, founders with a certain experience in a particular sect that like are active on LinkedIn and really like dig deep into this? Because I find that once you really start, what I found, and I still see this all the time in the startup world, is the people who like really know their customer like really well, are the ones that usually wind up a lot more successful, because they can speak to the problems that are like experienced. To like, you can have a conversation. Like when I talk to people about LinkedIn, it's like I was an operator for years. So when people talk about like time management and, how to open up conversations and what do I say to get a result, it's like, oh, I got you. I totally understand the pain points that you're experiencing, and I can speak intelligently to it because I struggle with the same things myself. And I've built software to literally help me with that, to help you with that. People usually relate to that because you're not just like guessing. You can speak from a place of intelligence. So kind of going back to like the point here is that from the beginning, a lot of times, again, I'm sure you'll experience this too. I hear this all the time. It's what do I say? What do I say? What do I say? Messaging is not the problem. It's framing and then also targeting. Because good prospecting fuels a high quality sales pipeline. If you're just targeting so broadly and kind of automating it, and you also, even if you're not automating it, if you're just targeting very broadly, you just don't really understand the pain points of exactly, you haven't like kind of honed in on your product market fit. Like who exactly are you the best for? And the only way to know that is to probably talk to a lot of people that you're not the best for. Sometimes it's not like necessarily knowing the answer, it's knowing who's not the answer.
Process of elimination.
Exactly. So what I want to say is that if your talking list, like what I say, who's on your pipeline? Who are you talking to? What prospects are you talking to right now? If that is weak, because most of the time when you ask that question to a lot of like startups or consultants who are not like sales oriented, they will say basically nobody, right? I don't have any process. So again, the problem isn't what you're saying. It's like the targeting. It's like you don't have a list. You don't understand who you're trying to target. So it makes it harder for a consultant or a salesperson to come in and say, well, why don't we target these people or these people or these people? So you want to start with how you source leads and targeting. And then once you do that, then you can move towards framing and messaging. So the better your campaign list, the easier it is to progress people forward. Because if you're always talking to the same types of people, like what I went over last week with my client that does HR tech, we had the same conversations over and over with benefit brokers, service providers. It's because its software is like literally targeted for those people. So you get a lot more reps and conversations going to kind of what framing works. Because
you see the patterns.
You see the patterns. It's like, well, this style of questioning of how I open the conversation, why I'm interested in talking with them always typically works because we're not trying to manipulate by any stretch. We're trying to progress. That's the art of this. It's like I'm not trying to get the conversion. The clients that I have aren't focused on the conversion. They're focused on how many people we're progressing through a pipeline. How many people are we generating awareness on, driving consideration, and then let the conversions speak for themselves based off how good the product is, and maybe a little bit more honed in closing techniques that are a little bit different. So kind of the takeaways for today is to replace pressure with progression. So the conversation that we had in the beginning, that prospect was pressuring me. And I feel like people don't like to be pressured. That shouldn't be the goal of this at all. So when you connect, when you generate awareness and then drive directly to the conversion with skipping the consideration, you're pressuring people. And nobody wants to be pressured. The goal of networking is not to convert, it's to connect. And if you don't think about it that way, you're not going to get conversions because people aren't going to want to talk to you. The conversion becomes the byproduct of trust, timing, and thoughtful progression. And if you do it thoughtfully, with the right timing and like build trust and rapport, people will want to meet you. That's the way it should be. It's easy to say, why don't we just get on a call so I can learn more about you and share about me, which is what the guy said to me in the beginning. He just did it in the wrong sequence that turned me off versus doing it at the right time. After building rapport sets up the agenda. Like now I know what we're going to talk about and what you're interested in. You're going to give me, like, I felt you out. I built trust. That's the,
Colin, can you give us an example? Let me put you out there now. Right. Let's say I was a prospect. All right.
Yeah.
And what would you DM me and say? So I accepted your connection invite. What would you DM me and say on LinkedIn? I'm on my LinkedIn right now on my phone. I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay, so give
And
me
I'm gonna
the
respond. Yeah, that's me. If you
yeah.
message me about something now, what would be your process? You know, look at what I do. Start a conversation and let's see.
So first of all, I'm just pulling up our past conversation. You could see when we first kind of met and through LinkedIn. It was nice chatting with you earlier this week. I look forward to connecting next week to continue the conversation. I just want to point out, do you see my art of progression?
Oh,
Because
it's too tiny. Let me bring it up on my phone.
here,
Okay, I see it. I see it. Hey. Okay, hey Shane, it was nice chatting with you earlier this week. Look forward to connecting next week. Continue this conversation. Yeah, likewise, Colin. Yeah, because we met on Upwork, so we
we
had
met
a
on
good
work, we
chat.
connected on LinkedIn. I think you reached out to me, you were proactive, and then I acknowledged receipt, and then I progressed towards a serious conversation. We had already kind of built rapport for LinkedIn campaign and talking replied rather quickly. So I'm just trying to drive it serious because I'm trying to progress it. So my micro conversion in this moment, just reading it, I know what I was thinking was how do I acknowledge receipt, right? Because I didn't have to connect with you. We met. You don't know in the first initial interaction how I'm feeling. So I want to disarm it. I want to tell you it was nice chatting with you. I want to be proactive and telling you how I felt openly, and then also progress it. I'm assuming this might have been like a Friday or something like that, Thursday or Friday, end of the week, right? Because I'm already setting something up for next week. So I'm trying to progress. That's my mindset. But give me your context and I'll role play.
All right, take it from my profile. Take it from my profile. I help professionals globally to you know connect, helping self-employed professionals
Yeah.
connect and make money from LinkedIn, build community, create content, etc.
Okay. So what I would do, okay, so let me ask you this. Have I already connected with you, or are we playing it from the perspective of this is a new profile that I stumbled upon and that I want to connect with you? What's the framing?
Okay, so I would say, heck, I'm a new profile.
Brand new
You're gonna
profile
send the
and we're not
connection.
connected.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're not
So what
connected.
I would okay, so what I would do is I would immediately start going to your posts and I would start liking a couple of them or even find one that I can comment on. So let's go to the last one that you posted. So you're already saying I'd like to speak. This was a week ago. You had no comments. I would literally say, I would probably say,
All right.
so what's happening now is if I saw that it was A or B, I'm not connecting with you, right? Because I'm generating awareness. Connecting with you is driving it towards consideration and conversion. You don't know who I am. So I could sit and start thinking, I mean, there's different options. I could cleverly start saying, hey, O'Shane, I came across your profile. It looks like you're up to some really interesting things in the sales space. I thought we might be able to mutually benefit from one another. Let's connect. I'm sure that would work. I'm not saying the conversion rate on that wouldn't work, especially considering I can tell based off your profile that you're a networker. So I could just lead to the consideration aspect of it by building it up from a perspective of what's in it for you, right? I'm leading with, I think we could mutually benefit one another. So therefore, let's go to it. I sometimes do that. I'm not saying that that's a bad strategy, right? Just playing the numbers games and letting people know. And then when you connect, now I can open the conversation to introduce myself and then ask you a diagnostic question. I might even at
Okay.
that point say, thanks for connecting. I see that you're, in the last week you said that you're, well, so when's your speaking gig, right? Do you even say that? Like, excited to speak at Ready, Set, Sell.
Mhm.
Tools and strategies I never spoke of. You get behind the scenes, register here. There's no register. So maybe I would point that out to you.
Oh, that makes sense.
That would be something that I would probably say. It'd be like if you connected and I looked at it, I would, if I was reading this, I would say, "Hey, O'Shane, thanks for connecting. I really like. I think you have your profile caught my eye. I was looking at your post. It looked like I'm do you speak often? I saw your register link wasn't in your last post. I don't know if that was a mistake or not. My point is I'm trying to cut through to make sure that you're not a bot. Now, if I sent that to you, the thoughtfulness, which is true because I literally am seeing it in real time and then sharing it, you're going to respond to me. My conversions on just because again, remember my micro conversion from LinkedIn campaign is to a talking reply. I'm just trying to get you to respond. So I'm trying to be thoughtful and trying to provide value. So that might be just spreading positivity in a comment. Right now, I'm at least got to the awareness stage. You know who I am. If I start doing it once or twice more, I think at that point you would start maybe clicking through to my profile. At that point, I could also check to see if you looked at my profile. So then I know that I got an awareness of, and then sneak peek on the software that we've developed is, I have an external database that I'm saving prospects to. So it's not automation. It's just that I would save you to the database. Obviously, you're already in my database. So, I could take notes or at least just kind of add you to a list. So that would be kind of my next, for me, what I would do is I would just add you to a list by saying maybe prospecting, having a new list, new prospects. And then I would just add people to a list. So therefore, at least you become a little bit more top of mind for me. If I'm filtering by certain.
There was.
Yeah. So yeah, I could just filter by the list. And then, just have you be a little bit more top of mind for me to check in over the next week or so. Because I'm usually trying to find people who are somewhat active on LinkedIn. So you fit that category. In a week or so, you would probably post again. So I would find you, I would comment. Then maybe next week you post again. I would comment. After 2 comments, I would probably send you a connection request with something like that. See, you're posting a lot about sales. I thought you might be a good person for us to kind of connect with. Like looking forward to seeing if we can connect sometime, something like that. You'd probably accept. And then I would open a dialogue with you, maybe commenting about your post, going back to kind of what I said before. Enjoyed your post on sales, curious about how your your register link wasn't on the latest post. So I don't know when it was. I'm curious to know how that went. I feel like I'm going to hook you by this because I'm asking about you. It's literally like easy for you to answer that. If you don't answer me, you're it gives me real-time data. I'm not saying that you're a bad person, but maybe you're not a buyer in this moment. You don't really know, right? Maybe you're on vacation. Maybe like you got a lot of things going on. Like, I'm not going to judge, but the conversation's there that even if it takes a couple weeks, you'll probably get back to me. So yeah, then I would do that. And then eventually I would, you would probably say something. Knowing your personality, you would probably, you give me real-time data that shows me you have personality. Oh, it went well. Like, but here's where I could have been better. Something like that. I'm like, oh, I like this guy. I would maybe then send you an article that talked about like how not to be too hard on yourself. And say, hey, I saw this article once. Maybe it would, maybe it's help. Maybe it'll help you about like maybe getting better at public speaking, right? So now we're building rapport. At that point, I would start marking you in my database as a serious conversation.
Oh, wow.
And then I have like a list of a Kanban board so I can kind of organize all my serious conversations. So, that's kind of how I think about it, right? And so the art of progression, you're a serious conversation, but at a certain point in time when it makes sense for me, potentially for you, depending on what you're posting about, depending on what's going on in my business, I would try to merge to see if we could get on a quick call. And, and then that's a different, that kicks, well, a lot of that is, let's say, the precursor to a sales process. I'm diagnosing when we get on a call if it makes sense to pitch you, or like it's not pitching. It's like just learn, like, where are you at in your business? What are you trying to accomplish? What are your problems? How can I help you? And then I'm assuming you're probably going to ask me the somewhat similar things. And then what I like to say, I usually break up discovery calls and then maybe another call if it makes sense. So the purpose of my discovery calls are not to pitch you, like, by design. So I'm not sitting there trying to like throw up on you about like, what do I do?
Feature note.
We're about trying to learn about what you do, what you're like, where you're at. And then if we feel like we had a good conversation, it's a lot easier to be like, look, Oshane, I would love to share with you more about what I do and how I do it. But, you know, we're kind of running at time. How about we schedule another check-in maybe next week or later this week so I could run through that and see if we're maybe a good fit. Boom. Now we've started what really kicks off a sales process.
Nice. Well done. So the conversation has been started. That was pretty clean cut, and that tool that helps to track leads and track those serious conversations, and the consideration and the awareness, that's available in the Chrome store. Is it not? Is it?
It's you can download it through pursuenetworking.com, but right now we're about to go live with the version that I showed, so it's kind of more of a sneak peek.
Cool.
The one that we have live is tools, but the newer version of it that's way better. So we have those tools to be able to. So quick context story is that I managed a management service where I was developing software for management. That's how like I said, when we were talking, when I was doing this, the problem became data management. Like, at a certain point, it is hard to keep track of all the open conversations, especially because the name of the game is building relationships and nurturing things across time. So you do have to kind of categorize people and add notes and like be more on top of it. So we built management software for us internally, but now we're starting to consumerize the software and building AI into it to really try to bring more tools to the LinkedIn platform for people to help them, manage their own networks a little bit more effectively. So it's still in beta, but we're aiming to go live with it in the next few weeks with a much cleaner, better version of it. It works, but we're still kind of working through some bugs before we kind of put it out in the wild.
Oh, nice. What's the price point on it?
It's a subscription model. So we're doing $35 per subscription, but we're doing bundles. So if you want to buy more licenses for like a small business team, or even participate in a little program that we put together through office hours and like an inner circle, you can get more licenses for reduced rates. So trying to help people based off where they're at. Individual, teams, or someone who maybe wants a little bit more consulting support, working more directly with me and you.
Nice. That's a good price point. It's cheaper than LinkedIn. LinkedIn Premium.
Yeah. It's cheaper than LinkedIn Premium. That's kind of the idea.
All right. Awesome. Hey, that was interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I will steal that PowerPoint for my presentation. But good stuff, Colin. And so
what do you want to talk about next week? What's on your mind now that we've kind of talked about sourcing leads on LinkedIn? We talked about messaging funnels. What do you think would be the most helpful?
I would love to go deeper into that tool, Pursue Networking. I certainly would like to see. When you talked about AI, when is that fully ready to roll out?
We're testing it internally first, and then we're going to be rolling it out for beta for people that want to kind of be initial testers before we kind of roll it out to the masses. But learned a lot about AI. reality of AI is it goes pretty quickly, let's just say. So once we kind of have something that is good to go, we'll roll it out and like, yeah, we could do that whole training session on it. But what I would say, and to anybody that might be listening or clipped later on, is I think that sometimes people get too boggled down on the tools and don't focus enough on the mechanics associated with like how to develop the skill of networking. Because tools aren't the answer. They are a helpful assistant to collaborate with. But at the end of the day, you still have to kind of understand your target market, understand what you offer, understand how to have a desire to build relationships with people. We're trying to make tools to make it easier for people to be more effective and efficient at it. But it's important to kind of make sure that people realize that you don't need tools to get results. Tools are helpful to get results, but at the end of the day, it's more about the mechanics of learning how to frame and how to source leads, how to keep frame, and then how do you get better at the mechanics of sales.
All right, well said. And so there's plenty to look forward to next week Tuesday on office hours. So great chatting with you, Colin.
Yeah, it was good chatting with you too. Take care. We'll talk soon.
Bless up.
Bye.